right, Benji, we're gonna do this thing. Let's have a little chat. You read the title. It is true. I will not be getting pregnant. I'm gonna go into detail about why that is and what brought us here, but I want to just say right out of the gate that I'm actually really happy, and I think that's important to say because it can feel very sad when things don't work out how you envision them to work out. But I do think that there are parts of this journey that are really filled with gratitude and are really kind of a blessing in a weird way, even when it is hard. You guys have been following along on our fertility journey of sorts for a very long time. I feel like this has become, I would say, my part-time job, but I actually think it's been my full-time job, especially over the last 2 years. I'm sure you're like, well, why are you happy? Why can't you get pregnant? And I thought you just did IVF. Like, well, what are you gonna do now? I'm happy because I feel like I was such an outlier in this fertility journey. Every doctor, every specialist, like really smart, intelligent people were like, I can't figure this out, or you know what, your weird problem is like so rare and it could kill you and it's so crazy. Let's have 5 other specialists look at you. And it just became this insurmountable thing for me where I was like, anytime there was something good that happened, I was just burdened with fear, trauma, anxiety. And this process was so joyless for me in a lot of ways. And I went through so much trauma. I mean, I've been through like 17 hours of labor, passing a miscarriage. I had to take almost 2 months of chemotherapy. I basically haven't really worked very much in the last year or two because I've been recovering. I've had surgeries, multiple surgeries, and I probably will continue to have some surgeries, but I just feel like this weight on me of trying to do this, trying to win at this is over. It's off of me, and I feel so relieved. I feel so happy. I know that's not a normal response, but I actually feel like it's a pretty healthy response considering all that I've been through. I did have a few weeks where I was really, really sad. But after I started thinking about it, I was like, wait a minute, this is not a sad thing. There are a lot of really good reasons why you should be very happy right now. So why can't I have a baby? Well, I technically can, but it's not advised. In addition to my miscarriage risk being super high, in addition to me having another ectopic pregnancy, that risk is super high. I did an MRI in January where it was discovered that I have this really small area on one side of my uterus, and we think it actually might have been because of the ectopic pregnancy that it happened this way, but this very small piece that is so thin, and it's oddly positioned right where that ectopic pregnancy was. And after looking at my MRI and having many doctors who are like the best of the best who teach other doctors this type of medicine, they were all very clear that I could get pregnant again and I could have a very healthy, normal pregnancy and everything could go perfectly fine. However, it could be that once I got pregnant and my uterus starts to grow, that super thin area of tissue would stretch and it could rupture, and it could possibly rupture while I was giving birth. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the top reasons why women die during childbirth is uterine rupture. So it was very clear to me that it was risky. After hearing so many doctors kind of talk me through this process of what my risks were, I just knew it wasn't gonna be something that would be an option for us, especially after all that I had been through. I mean, literally, my life was at risk during the ectopic process. I never want to go back there again. And it's just not worth it to me to have such a stressful, anxious existence. So even though I can, God willing, I will not be pregnant. So hopefully there will be no more sad videos on my channel about this journey. However, we did go through an IVF cycle, which means we did an egg retrieval. And I'm gonna do a whole video on that whole process and what happened. Wasn't the greatest, but what else do you expect from one of my videos? And I'm sure you're like, but I thought you just said you can't have babies, and I definitely will not be. We would probably end up working with someone who is a gestational carrier, or you might also know it as a surrogate. It is something that we are discussing and considering, trying to figure out like what that process is and if it really is for us. It is a very expensive process. I've heard it could be anywhere between like $50,000 to $150,000. And it does feel foreign to me. I don't know really anyone personally who's ever done surrogacy. What I've also found to be really hard is a lot of people publicly don't talk about surrogacy. So I can't like watch a lot of YouTube videos about intended parents, which would be me, talking about going through this process because there is so much shame and like privacy associated with this process. I do think it is seen as like something that rich people do so they don't mess up their bodies. And I think no one wants to be lumped into that category when they're going through this process because, fun fact, I did talk to one of my OBGYNs who does a lot of like high profile pregnancies, and he said he's only had one person in his entire career ever come to him and say, I just don't want to like mess up what I've got. I don't want to get pregnant. I want somebody else to do it for me. He says he's only had one person ever say that. Pretty much every single other patient he's had has had serious complications where he's had to tell them, you actually have to go surrogacy. That's the route, your only option. I feel like there's a huge stigma with that, and I think that a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be judged that way. Honestly, everybody has their own life and their own choices that they make, and I don't judge really anyone for making any fertility choices that make them feel comfortable. I just hope to have the same respect from other people when it comes to my own fertility choices. So if we end up going that route, I will absolutely share and tell you guys. I think I'd have to, because like it would be very weird if I just showed up with a child one day and didn't tell you where I got it. And if you guys know of any creators who have gone to seek out surrogates, please let me know. I've really had a hard time. I've found people who are surrogates talking about their process, which has been helpful. With the idea of surrogacy, I was really sad because I was like, oh, I won't be able to like carry my own child, and pregnancy I've been told is so beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing you can do. And I do believe that it is really beautiful. I have been pregnant. I know exactly how it feels. It's such a special thing. But I don't really find a lot of people who have like grown children who sit around with their friends and go, oh, you know what I wish I was right now? Pregnant. I wish I was pregnant all the time. It's my favorite time. People talk about college like that. Like I have adult friends who are like, oh, you know what I miss? Like clubs. Not too many people, but some people, I guess. And I have a lot of friends, so many friends who had really hard pregnancies, who were really sick, who were really not having a good time. So much so that they don't even know if they want to have to do it again. Like they're like, I don't think I could ever go through that again. And I think that some people have such an easy time with it and they're great with it. And then I think there are some people who have really difficult times. And I have to think to myself, maybe me not being pregnant and having like a labor experience, which I kind of already had, and I can tell you it was traumatizing and I never want to do that again. Maybe I'm a person who, maybe I would be on bed rest, or maybe I would have complications, or maybe I wouldn't be able to work, or maybe I'm being saved from something that is much, much worse than how sad I am that I can't get pregnant. Like maybe this is all working out for a reason that's to my benefit long term, even though in the short term I feel sad because it doesn't look exactly the way I thought it would. But maybe in the grand scheme of things, I'm gonna be happy that I didn't have to go through this process. It's kind of like when you date that guy in college and like 10 years later, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't end up marrying that guy. But at the time you're like, I want to marry him and have 12 of his babies. But you don't know what you don't know in the immediate present time. What's great about all of this is I feel so much better now. I feel excited to start making content again. I am going to be doing more renovation stuff in the desert now that all this is over. Also, by the way, I had COVID. My word of the year this year was health, and I thought for sure I'd just be, getting a few checkups here and there, but it has really been the word of the year, and I'm like, I wish I would have picked vacations. It's the word of the year. So this is still a work in progress. I don't really have an answer for you right now as to what is next, but I did want to do this video because A lot of you have been so lovely and so supportive and sent me the most incredible messages and encouragement and tips and input. And now it feels weird when you're like, oh, it's gonna happen for you. Can't wait to see you pregnant. The day you give birth to your baby, it's gonna be the best day. I feel like I'm lying to you when I'm like, thanks so much, same, me too, because it's not gonna happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen. And I don't want you guys to be messaging me and praying for me and hoping for me for something that is actually not gonna happen. And if we end up doing surrogacy, if that's something that's next for us, I will be covering it, I think, because I don't know, I feel like when I have read, like I think Gabrielle Union did an article about her surrogacy experience, and I felt every single word of that experience. It was really deep and really hard. It was really hard to read because there is a lot of pain and a lot of sadness and disappointment in going that route. But I also think there's a lot of positive, uplifting perspectives in that experience. I want to find out what those are too. And so if I do, I want to be able to share it with all of you. So if you have any words of encouragement or anything that you can share that would be helpful for me, not only for me, but also other people who might have stumbled upon this video, please share it down below. This has been a wild ride. I think in life we have these visions for what we want to happen in our life. And I think we should always go towards those and believe that those things can happen. But I think we always have to be in a posture where if our ideal situation doesn't play out, that we can pivot and we can emotionally handle challenges. Because I think it's really easy when things get really hard and they don't play out like you thought they would, to shut down and be so sad and paralyzed by your sadness. But I just think that life is going to be hard no matter who you are, where you are, what you're going through, instead of focusing on how hard and how sad it is. If you can focus on the silver linings and the good things that kind of come out of it, you'll be in such a better place to be able to move forward in life. You guys have been honestly so good to me, and I feel honored that I get to really talk about this and share this experience with all of you. I feel honored to be a part of your life and be a part of the time that you spend on the internet. Please subscribe if you want to learn more about my fertility journey moving forward. I am going to do an IVF video, so if you have questions about IVF, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here. And you guys, I didn't cry a single time in this video. We're making emotional progress. Baby steps. No pun intended, but pun intended.